Okay, we're live. So could you guys let me know in the chat if you can hear me at home? Maybe Greg, if you could let me know that you can hear me. And we'll be starting in a minute. This is the Cheat Layer weekly meetup for the Product Lab Discord. We used to do these meetups weekly before, and we used to bring in founders and machine learning experts. But we stopped with the launch of Project Atlas because it was super overwhelming. But we're starting up again because we're overwhelmed again because we need to update users, and there's so much happening in the world of machine learning that feels like I'm missing things as well. So it's been useful to bring in experts, and it definitely helped with our research to discuss things while we're going. So we're starting that process up again. Today we have Mohammed, who has a machine learning researcher. Maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit. Hold on a second. Wait. Let me make sure I'm recording my audio output. Can you speak?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah. I think I'm recording the audio output, so let's hope so. Maybe could you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed Rizwan. Did my PhD from Georgia Tech in deep learning, more specifically on adapting the neural network with small amount of data. Since then, I'm doing consulting, helping startups to use the machine learning capabilities to improve their products. And primarily, I work in time series analysis and using deep neural networks, convolutional neural networks for prediction, especially in the healthcare industry and predictive maintenance.
Awesome, thank you. And so we're going to start with a quick update on the state of Cheat Layer and everything that's happening. It's been super exciting. We launched on Product Hunt on last April and we won #1 product of the day. And since then, we've been growing 50% month over month. We just hit 10K MRR, and we just hit 10K users. It took us, I think, 20 months to hit 5,000 users. And then suddenly in 2 months, we hit 10,000 users. And so we're super overwhelmed with traffic, but also we're not updating users as frequently as we used to. And I understand that. And so we want to make sure we regularly update users and all the progress, because there's exciting things happening, and we don't want anyone to miss out on what's happening. But also, we believe a big part of our competitive advantage in this market is we have thousands of users using the software already. Just to take a big step back, Cheat Layer really formed during the pandemic, and the impetus was to help people build online businesses, completely non-technical people. And it was a way to scale up a nonprofit effort that I was doing, where I was just helping people build their products completely pro bono. And that was overwhelming for me, and so we figured there was maybe some way to scale up using language models. The first version of GPT-3 wasn't powerful enough to actually solve that problem, but it had a kernel of magic that allowed us to generate code that actually executed in the browser. And for some reason, OpenAI let us sell that. And it took they don't care now, but it took some effort for them to allow us to sell it, because we had to build security mitigation features and things like that. And even the first version that they did allow us to sell didn't really originally solve that problem. However, it did generate code and automations, and we could say things like, go find machine learning engineers and send them to Google Sheets, and it would open up Indeed and scrape them and open new tabs and things like that. However, that wasn't a scalable solution. So we built something called Project Atlas that finally solves that original vision, and we launched it on Product Hunt on April. And now we've been finally, well, a few things happened after that launch. Something called product-led growth is working for us. Our free trial is working. A lot of users are just joining, using the software, and running out of tasks and upgrading just by virtue of the fact that they want to keep using it. And so that's exciting. The original version of what we built didn't actually generate the whole automation from end to end. It only generated automations if you knew how to code. So in order to solve the problem, it took us a year to build the Project Atlas framework, which taught all of the basically roadblocks that we learned to solve over that year into a library that we can bring to any new language model with the interface of language to solve roadblocks like cross-origin iframes, sending data, opening tabs, things like that. And so, yeah, we've been working on this problem, basically solving the last mile for language models to make them go and execute and solve problems in the real world. And we've been it took maybe a year to finally reach this point, and we've been working on a framework for agents for months, actually. We don't think we were the first to do it. I think a startup called Adept.ai probably started around the same time we did. So I don't know who else is maybe working in their garage or something. But several months ago on our Facebook group, we made a post where we talked about something called agents, which would adapt based on maybe changing designs. And if the Twitter, for example, changed their design, it would still understand that a tweet button is always a tweet button and still automate and things like that. And so we started building that in computer vision, but we weren't able to realize agents until finally getting access to ChatGPT's larger context window and solving the problem of bypassing even that context window. So let me just illustrate something cool. When we first launched CheatLayer, right? We do this now actually, but for different reasons. We used to manually onboard all the first users, and I personally manually onboarded all the first hundreds of users myself. And we taught them how to build automations using our no-code tools, which was typically as fast as you could build them, maybe like a year ago. And it took about 20 minutes to build the Amazon automation. It's about as fast as you can build them using other tools as well. Maybe some other tools are slightly faster, but that is not really the point. There are things like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Microsoft, and all that stuff that do allow you to build automations, kind of like using drag and drop interfaces like this, where you can visually see what you're automating and sort of build it. And it was generally considered this is the fastest way to do it months ago. And I viscerally understand the value of what we have now because I personally met with all those hundreds of users, and I spent like hundreds of hours showing them how to build this exact same thing again and again daily, exact same thing. So what we would do, and I'm just doing this to illustrate, is we would teach them this common pattern in automation, which is a search page and something else, a search page and a product page, or a search page and a profile page, which exists in most websites like Amazon, Zillow, eBay, Craigslist, almost all websites. They have some kind of format of this. So when we teach this, it opens up a big set of the solution space to users. And normally what we do is once we teach them how to solve the sub problem, the leaf node, which was just to scrape this data, we then go back to the search page and we tell them how to link all these links to the last automation we just built. And that takes about 20 minutes. And it's about as fast as we can go and things like that. But just to illustrate the difference of what Project Atlas actually does, and maybe just one example, you can now go to any website. This works at any website. But just if you go to Amazon, you can say scrape the product prices and descriptions. And it'll actually build the automation live based on context. And it's doing this in an interesting way. In order to just get this to work, we had to fit the HTML of websites into the context window of GPT-4. And so normally, all I said was scrape the product prices and descriptions. We did give it the context of the website. But normally, in order to build this automation, what you have to do is you have to fit like the hundreds of kilobytes. Some websites like Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, they have hundreds of kilobytes. They wouldn't normally fit into the context window, which is 8K for GPT-4. Maybe 32K is their high end, right? So we have to figure out a way to compress HTML of websites down 95% just to solve this page. And now, it solves the problem of figuring out what's on this page. However, it figured out that it's on the search page and it needs to solve the problem of opening all of those and automating those. And so now it needs to solve a problem that goes even beyond the 8K problem, problems of unlimited complexity, because there's, problems of unlimited complexity. So we figured out a way to teach ChatGPT. We call it internally org GPT. It's a library we use called agents.js to solve problems of unlimited complexity by spinning up workers that break down the problem and solve them in parallel. And if you look closely, each of these workers, it's opening these new tabs. I'm not doing anything. Each of these workers are generating slightly different code. And they're all solving the same problem. So they're actually different workers in parallel working to solve this problem. And they're all solving the same problem. They're solving the problem of scraping this data. Hold on. And we just have to wait a little bit for it to finish. But the interesting thing about this is, one, it did it in about a minute. So it built the whole automation for me in about a minute. Rather than me teaching you or it teaching you how to build it, it built it for us. So I think that's going to be a shift in the design of products. And we're solving a more generalized problem, which is a generalized software engineer by doing this. That rather than seeking out apps and solutions, you'll have a universal solution in your pocket that can solve problems for you. And this is just the start of what's possible. And we're not the only people working on this. So we know that even if we don't solve this problem, other people will go through and solve this, build like a generalized software engineer. Okay, this is going to keep going. So I'm going to stop it. Okay, so, and this is interesting for another exciting reason, because when it builds this automation, I'm just going to let it go. When it builds this automation, if you look closely, it's actually using the selectors of the website. And so that solves an interesting problem where all other automations tools maybe like a few months ago, they would break when the website's updated or when the services updated their designs or the code or things like that. And so you'd have to go back and fix them or hire someone to go fix them. And until GPT-4 was released, it wasn't really possible to solve this problem because you would need a software engineer to go and build the solution live every time you run it. And so it solves that. That's one interesting problem. Finally, you have this solution to changing design and selectors. Even websites like Facebook that change their selectors every refresh, it finally allows you to scrape those products as well. And so it basically works together to, some of these pages weren't correctly formatted, but it works together to find and solve this problem, break it down, solve it based on context. And so this is exciting. So that we released that already. All users have access to this now. You can go to any website. You can try this on any website. It works on like eBay, Amazon, Zillow, Craigslist, even websites, all websites literally. So out of the box, you can scrape all the images, videos, links, tables, metadata, HTML, I don't know, things we don't even know yet from all websites, and that works from anyrandomwebsite.com. You can also automate, for example, social media. So things like ChatGPT plugins would never allow, just based on maybe guidelines, or you can think of us like the Android to ChatGPT plugins, Apple. So you can automate posting to social media, automate growing any social media. So you can, and it'll even do the scheduling for you. So you can say post a tweet about AI automation or any brand every day at 10 a.m. and it'll build the automation, post the tweet, schedule it for you, and that's kind of exciting stuff. All right. Towards the end of the meetup, I want to share a few cheat codes, basically, for automations that you guys can use to build completely novel automations in just simple phrases, simple language. And it's just to illustrate the fact that now the way we built this is that users are discovering these automations in simple language. So if you go to the cheat codes page, you can see what other users have figured out. Christoph's pretty good. I didn't know web quality assessment was possible. I didn't know this was possible, turn any website into dark mode. So like, we basically gave ChatGPT the ability to pull in any CDN, pull in any API, execute our internal library that lets it, bypass security and open tabs and send data, and execute arbitrary JavaScript. So the solution space is wide. We don't really know what's possible, and users are able to discover, I'm sure, things that we never even imagined because they have deep industry insight we don't have. It turned it into dark mode, and even how does it even do the image? I don't even know how that works. So it does things that I don't even expect, and so I'm super excited to see what you guys come up with. And what we're doing next is we're going to heavily incentivize users to publish by rewarding all users with 1,000 cheat cloud tasks per month for life. That's a simple thing. Access to a private Discord channel of people who have discovered stuff to share tricks and things. And also eventually paying users directly every time someone runs these automations. Every time like an enterprise customer or someone runs any user runs these automations, we can directly pay whoever discovered dark mode. So it's possible for users to discover simple, valuable automations in simple language, what I mean, early on, and earn a lot of money just by being the first and just doing it entirely in simple language, because a lot of these are, I think, low-hanging fruit. They haven't been discovered. So in these weekly meetups to incentivize that and jumpstart that process, I'm going to be giving away phrases that I've discovered that are going to work, that we just haven't published yet. We don't have time to publish them yet. But if you guys could record videos for us, I'd appreciate that. That'd be amazing. But also, it'll give you access to all those perks and things like that. So I'll be running them towards the end of the call. Before that, I want to just discuss some of the latest research with Mohammed, just to get an update on things like that. And then I also want to share the last big update for CheatLayer is we're going to be releasing our no-code agents dashboard in the next week. This time we're not going to give away the exact date, but everyone will know it when it happens. Last time when we launched our Product Hunt, some of you might have watched the first video when we launched. We got DDoS attacked like minutes before the launch. And so someone knew, and we have people who don't really like us, I think. So, and we just got attacked a few days ago. If you look at our usage, someone tried to like spend all of our API, like create free accounts and stuff like that. But we fixed that. So we're not going to tell, and just for that reason, we're not going to alert when the launch is, but it's going to happen sometime in the next week. But however, there's a problem. So let me go to the wait list. So you have to understand that. So even that Amazon automation, you might have noticed that it was spinning up 10 tabs, and those are all workers. OpenAI for all users imposes a rate limit of 3,500 requests per minute. And so that was just 10 in 1 minute, right? So if we release this to just 500 users and they all run agents at the same time, it would quickly hit our rate limit, and then all users wouldn't be able to use Project Atlas or anything like that. So we want to avoid that situation where we can get completely blocked and things like that. And so we have to rate limit how many users we give access to agents to begin with. And basically what agents are, they extend, we've been talking about this for months, but it's basically the idea of an autonomous AI program that can solve problems with dynamism. So the example we gave months ago was that if Twitter changes their Twitter design, right, the agent would still be able to understand a tweet button always as a tweet button and still be able to tweet. And so we want to design these agents based on a history of understanding of what the tweet button is. And so we've set up ways to even do that using computer vision on desktop. That's exciting. So we have a no-code agent platform on desktop we're launching in the next few months. But this is going to be, I think, since like right now there's a lot of other people competing with us. Like in the last few weeks, they're like things like Auto GPT and Baby ABGI and all these other things came out. But a few months ago, we were the only startup in the planet using GPT-3 to generate automations ever. And we were the first to do it like a year ago. So you guys know that because you've been with us. And so I think we should release our agents platform, which we've been working on for like months, just to establish that we have something that actually works. It's significant. And I've been testing it. So we have 3 significant no-code agents that we're going to release that have been useful for us as a business. But we believe that our community has really the deep industry insight and the juncture of all those markets to build far more valuable agents. And so we're setting up like a community platform to manage agents in like a project management interface where you can see what they're doing. You can get updates, real-time updates, and things like that. See work in parallel, and even we also allow you the ability to edit their tasks, edit the context, things like that. So it's going to be actually a functional agents platform, and we've been testing it. So, for example, one of the 3 agents that we're going to release is a sales automation agent. We already released our webinar on sales automation that we use internally to get demos on autopilot. The next level of this is a agent that automatically scours LinkedIn, GitHub, like Hacker News, Indie Hackers, whatever, and sends personalized outbound based on an understanding of the context of the person, maybe their social profile. We have enrichment APIs that can get like their websites, social profiles. So it's able to send personalized messages, but also we can maintain those conversations in something we're going to call it. It's basically a vector database as a CRM. And the idea is that these agents will be working autonomously across the internet, talking to people and executing sales copy for us, basically, and working towards a demo. They won't be maybe closing the demos yet. They'll be sending demos to us. But in order to maintain the conversation correctly, we're going to set up a vector database as a CRM so that they know who they're talking to in the history of the conversations, and they can do this unlimited times in parallel. And then what that allows us to do is allows us to build this in a scalable way, and allows us to create agents that also iterate based on their copy. And so they understand the copy that converts. You can say, okay, this converts, and they only use the copy that converts. And so they get better at, like, autonomous sales agents that actually get better at sales over time. And so that's kind of exciting for us. That's immediately useful for us. We already use sales automation, so that's cool. The other exciting agent, there's 2. There's a research agent. So you can get a preview of this. You can get a preview of all 3 of these already with CheatLayer, because you can do the sales automation thing, contact the live chat support to get a link to the sales automation webinar. You can do the research. There's 2 more. There's a research agent, and then there's a software development agent. And these 3 have been the most useful to us, so that's why we're working on them. And we're going to publish them for users to use, but then we expect the community to also build agents and publish them as well. So so for the preview of the research agent, you can go to any PDF now. I've already set this up for us. So you can go to any PDF, open any PDF, and then ask it anything. Keep talking to it and ask it questions. In order to do this, open the CheatLayer extension icon by clicking the icon on the top right corner. Click Add Automation, and then Project Atlas. And then you can ask it, like, what is the topic? And then ask it actual meaningful questions about the paper. And this works on even hard research papers, scientific research papers, health research papers, things you don't understand. You can ask it to explain it like you're 5. You can even ask it like your own ideas. You can pitch it your own ideas against the research. And that's kind of interesting for me because one of my hobbies is cosmology. And so I've been pitching my theories and ideas and things. And so it's very fun. I wasted a lot of time with this. But this is a preview of the agent we're releasing, which I've had a chance to play with, which you can basically give it a generalized problem. And you can say things like, get the latest research on LLMs or a GPT-4. And what it'll do is it'll open Google Scholar, search all the latest research papers, open them in new tabs, form conclusions in each one of those new tabs, send the conclusions back, then form a generalized conclusion on everything else. With respect to your topic that you want to cover. So it's actually an autonomous research agent that could possibly even discover new solutions. And we're excited about this because there's situations, even for like software engineers, where you run into roadblocks when you're solving problems. Just even for me, for startups, it happens to every startup. So When that happens, typically what we do is we go into research, the bleeding edge research, or we spend a lot of time on Google or Stack Overflow, and then until we bang our heads into the keyboard and we finally figure out a solution. And so we want to teach that process of going to the bleeding edge research to an autonomous agent. So the idea is that right now it can form a conclusion, so that's what we're going to release next week. It can open up research papers and actually form an independent conclusion based on new ideas. And then the really exciting thing is when we can take that conclusion and link it to newly generated code, because we can generate code with these agents now as well. So if it hits a roadblock, what we want to do is use the research agent to research the latest research to try and solve the problem, and then try and generate new code to continue and solve the roadblock. I think when we get to that point, we'll have reached a significant milestone. And the only reason we're going in that direction is because these are problems we want to solve for our customers and ourselves. And these three agents we think are supremely valuable for all startups: a software development agent, a research agent, and a sales agent. And they were to us. So the preview of the software development agent, you can go to any website and say, like, build a landing page for a sales automation SaaS. And this is surprising. You can tell it to build anything. You can tell it to build any sort of tool. In the cheat codes page, you could see someone figured out how to make it to build like a color picker. So it can build functional JavaScript-powered tools and games even. So I made a game here earlier. I made a space shooter game where you can shoot, and the enemies are all dead, but it made this for me. And I even asked it to add enemies because it didn't add them. So that's one of the exciting things is, okay, so here it's building the website for me in the background. It doesn't just build the website for you. It does something which is indicative of how these kinds of tools will work in the future. So now what you would do is when you, like, we had this during one of our live onboardings, is a user asked, well, how do I take this and input this into an editor so I can edit these things? And the way I answered is, if you had hired someone to build this automation for you, what would you do? You wouldn't take it from them and edit it in an editor and give it back to them. You would tell them to fix it in simple language, because that's how you interface. So if I hired someone from Upwork or something to build this website for me, and I wanted to add a pricing section, right? What would I do? I would say add a pricing. Imagine this is the Upwork chat. Add a pricing section and make all the font color purple, right? And as soon as this finishes, I'm going to send that. And I mean, it took only a minute, so this is much better. We don't have to really wait. I mean, I'm acting like I have to wait, but I don't. Like, that was like seconds that it built it for us in the background. And now it's going to build it for us, just like if I were talking to a personal software engineer on Upwork. So I think this is indicative of a future very soon where everyone will have a personal software engineer or designer in their pocket to build their solutions, rather than seeking out apps for solutions or waiting for someone to build your app or waiting for a service to add a feature to their service for you. Everyone will have a personal software engineer to build your own app, to solve your own problems, to build your own service to solve your own problems. And they'll have access to all the APIs, underlying APIs, so it'll be cheaper for you, right? So if they build a version of you could tell them to build a version of Monday for me. And the version they would build for you would be based on all the open source tools and all the APIs, and it would be way cheaper. So I think that's going to fundamentally change how software works in like the next 6 months to a year, where you won't need to go pay for software or seek apps or wait for people to build features for you, because your needs are probably different than the other guy, and the business has to aggregate the needs of all their customers. I think that difference and that friction is going to lead to language models solving this problem, where even if we don't solve this problem, we have competitors like Adept and Microsoft who will allow everyone to have basically a personal software engineer in their pocket. And this is better than a personal software engineer. This is like even a designer, like a professional designer. So it added like a pricing section, right? It made it purple, but you could also tell it to make it in the style of Apple or make it in the style of eBay. Don't make it in the style of eBay. eBay's ugly, but it knows the history of material design or modern design or flat design. So it understands the history of everything. So it's much better than a software engineer. It's like a software engineer, a designer, an anthropologist, and like everything all combined in one. And so it's like a super assistant. So even for me, this We built this interface using Project Atlas in 2 days rather than 3 weeks. And even this real time search stuff where when I type and it like adds this, I didn't write the code for that. Project Atlas wrote the code for that. And then after it generated the code, we sent it. You can look at the UI UX channel in the Discord. You can see the feedback of the history of how we built this. We sent it to a professional designer, and then in 2 days we built it rather than me spending 3 weeks to build this thing. So everyone has access to this. And if you could go look back at the history of how I built these things, all of this is simple language. None of this is jargon. It's like even how I built this chat, I just took the feedback from our users. They wanted the ability to resize it. They wanted the ability to move it around the screen. Just like if you were hiring like an Upwork engineer to do these things, right? It's all simple, natural language. All right. So the agent version of this is very exciting because you can see now it's building front ends and simple front pages and stuff like that. And that's what you can also see in like other ChatGPT powered products. They're also building. There's also other like website builders, but they're also building. You can notice it's like simple widgets right now and simple front ends. And the reason for that is because the context window limit is 8K, and so you just need to take more steps to break past that. So when we get to agents, they'll be able to. I think there's another service that does this already. They can do the front end and back end, but agents will be able to generate the entire back end, entire front end, entire apps. Cryptocurrencies, marketplaces, like whatever you can imagine, literally anything. Entire apps for you, functional apps for you that use the official APIs and charge you less than the competitor because they know how to build it. So that's an exciting future for us. And this is just a consequence of what we're building. Like it solves a larger problem. We're solving a subset of the problem, which is automation. But just in consequence of what we're building, kind of solves this larger problem. So it's exciting. Okay. Excuse me. Are we still connected? Mohammed, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm doing next is maybe talk a little bit about the latest research. Let me just make sure the health of the chat is going well. Let's see. Cool. Everything's working well. And then let's maybe talk about the latest research. So I've been looking at most recently. There's this paper published. We just ran through it actually. The tree of thoughts research, and that was interesting because it's one of the paths to bypassing the context limit, but also building more robust, generalized maybe agents. Except it's not really generalized. It's more like stuck together with glue, I think, in my opinion. But it's an interesting solution because we did something similar with org GPT, where there were some papers that we talked about during our boot camp where the latest research, they said that you can say things like do things step by step, or there's words you can say in the prompt to make it actually perform better. And the reasoning behind this, why this happens, is the understanding is that basically it's like it gives it like a space, maybe like a memory to operate. Instead of doing everything in one shot, it gives it a little bit time or space to operate and think. And so if you do things step by step, then it can go back and you can tell it to even do something called self-reflection. There's another paper on reflection, so you can go back and think. And so I think that this is just basically the ideas of adding iterations, and maybe that's why. And I think intuitively it makes sense because you just have more data to work with and solve the problem. So that makes sense to me. And also that also generally makes sense because these models are good at comparing things better than going one shot and generating stuff, basically. And so the idea behind this paper is that it generates a bunch of things, a bunch of solutions to each step. So every time you have a task, it generates maybe like a few random solutions, and then it asks the model itself to evaluate each of those solutions, and then before taking the next step, it just takes the best step forward. And that's generally a good idea. And we're kind of implementing. We have to implement things like that now because we're building on the OpenAI framework. But there's also other research papers that I noticed that are building things like recurrent networks into language models somehow, or like some kind of back propagation into language models to have them somehow learn the value of truth or alter their understanding in a meaningful way to get rid of hallucinations, for example, right? Have you read anything like this, or have you seen this paper?
Yeah, this is a very interesting paper, the Tree of Thoughts. One of the, if you look as you mentioned, like one of the key limitation of current language models, despite they have hundred and billions of parameters, is that they are currently fail in the scenarios where there's a reasoning involved, or you're trying to solve problems. Like a software engineer came across a problem, and how are you going to solve this problem? And the simplest example is a math problem, word problems. So this Tree of Thoughts paper is very interesting. It's kind of a very fundamental shift in the way the new language models will be. If you go back, previously the language models were based on recurrent neural network, LSTMs. And then there was a big shift when the technology moved from RNNs to transformers, and that allow you to use a large amount of data with better processing these large data, and which resulted in these GPT models. So this Tree of Thoughts paper is very interesting in the way like it's proposing a very fundamental shift, which is based on the earlier paper they published in January this year, which is chain of thoughts. Yeah. So all natural language processing is based on a very fundamental processing unit that we call as tokens. This is all currently NLP is based on. And these tokens are, do inferences from left to right in terms of making the decisions. So what this paper is talking about is, instead of using tokens as the fundamental unit, it's moving towards the chain of thought concept, in which when you are training a language model, you capture the steps. A simple example to understand this is like, for example, consider a very simple math problem. Let's say Donald has 10 apples, and he gave 5 apples to David. And then the way it's going to learn this whole process of word problem is that you break down into the intermediate steps, which is they call as the thoughts. Like when Donald has the 10 apples, he gave 5 apples to the David. Donald is left with 5 apples. So instead of solving as a final answer, you capture all these intermediate steps, and you make these intermediate steps as part of the learning process. And using these intermediate process actually gives the model the capability of making decisions and choosing the right path and doing the self-evaluation to make the next action. So that makes a model more robust for the scenarios where you want to do a problem solving and reasoning. Mm-hmm. So that's very interesting about this one. And this whole idea is derived from human cognition model they call as a dual process model, in which there's 2 systems they think they operate. One is the fast and the unconscious, and the current language model are based on that one, in which you have tokens, and then you do the sampling of the results. The new approach, which is based on the chain of thought, and this Tree of Thoughts is relying on that approach, which is instead of using tokens as the processing unit, you use high-level semantic units, and that is based on the second system, which is kind of a slow, deliberate, and the conscious mode in which you make the decisions.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is interesting because it's actually something we can implement ourselves. It's not like rebuilding the transformer. It's something on top of the transformer that we can apply just by like an objective function or something. Yeah. And so,
exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm thinking of trying to, how ways we can use this to implement this into agents. But if you just look at the tree, it's very expensive to implement this. So
it's very computation expensive. Correct. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think they are obviously working on this in some ways, but it would be way better if they could build it into the model somehow. And there's other research papers that are working on that. Is there any other papers that you were seeing recently that's interesting?
Yeah, I was looking into, this comes related to the same problem that you identified in this paper, is, how you can use ChatGPT for, course design, because this course designing itself is a very, interesting industry that is, taking off in the last few years. And the same problem with the ChatGPT currently in terms of the limitation for the designing the course is when you, like, there was a study, very interesting study, like when you go with the task, which is kind of a summarization, course outlines. So ChatGPT is very good in that. But when you want to write a creative thing, the ChatGPT really fails sometimes. And there was an interesting study in which they compared two different student groups. One group of students were given the opportunity to use ChatGPT, while the other one does not have access to ChatGPT. And then in terms of the creativity, the group that has access to the ChatGPT, their performance was low as compared to the other. So this, this new way of, building the language model using the chain of thoughts, the tree of thoughts, will be very interesting, and this will be part of the new ChatGPT language models.
Oh, do you think it's the design is somehow
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. So this design will gonna bring this capability in the ChatGPT. That's, we're gonna overcome these challenges of creativity and problem solving into the
Oh, I
language
understand.
models.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, obviously, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and the other cool thing I was looking at recently was this 65K model that was open sourced by Mosaic ML recently. And so, like, one of the problems we've been running into is we needed to figure out a way to compress all the HTML of websites 95% to fit into the 8K context window. And so we had to jump through a bunch of hoops to do that. And one of the things we tried was to get it to do zip compression. That did not work at all. And so that's interesting. But there's interesting research on how you could maybe do that. And then, but this all solves it in the other direction. We also did research in ways to build our own transformer of like 500K tokens. But the problem with that is you actually have to train the input on that. And you have to train the input on the spectrum of data as well for it to actually be useful across it. So it's a much larger problem to solve, and you need way more data to solve it, I think. And so it's interesting that this works because 65K, I guess they can do this because it's around the limit of books and things that you can fit. So I tried to set it up myself, and I got it running, but it's still very expensive to run. It requires an A100 in the cloud, and if we try to scale it up to all users, that would also be pretty expensive to run. But it's one path towards building these agents that can... So if you get to the point that you can get a 500K token window or a 1 million token window, then you can fit the entire product in the token window. Or you can do these things where you can fit like the entire problem. You can let it keep working and keep solving until it solves the problem and have the history of the failures, which you can't do yet. I think that's very valuable. So it'll basically open up a new category of solutions for us. So that's very exciting. So I was trying to set it up, but I ran into the issue of just it's one, not scalably, it's too expensive, kind of slow to set up and stuff like that. I mean, it's good as a tech demo, but if all users were trying to use this right now, we couldn't set it up easily, and it would be very expensive because each call was like, I don't know, like $10 or something ridiculous. I don't know. So, but we're working towards it, and the fact that it's open source is exciting because that means that people will work on improving it and building better versions of it and scaling it down and things like that. And so that's interesting. Have you seen this?
No. I've seen different models which are available in the Hugging Face. That's very interesting. Hugging Face, a lot of these available on their website.
Yeah, they have it on Hugging Face, but you have to set it up on SageMaker. I don't think they have the inference set up for this one yet because it's expensive. But that's the last I checked. But yeah, it's fun to play with because it can actually generate entire books meaningfully. Not like there are other papers out there that try to solve this problem by piecing together the history and like chaining together like a history, but that doesn't really solve the problem. So you can kind of tell by the complexity of what it can generate that it doesn't actually solve the problem correctly. But so it's exciting that people are working towards that, and I think we're just kind of riding that wave. Unless we get enough, like if we raise money and spend money building that's a research project that we can work on. That's going to take like years, I think, to build our own transformer to do that. So that'd be interesting. Is there any other exciting papers that you've read recently?
I mean, not specifically the ChatGPT, but that's one interesting thing is, there's a problem in the machine learning domain about the fairness of the algorithms. And currently, the ChatGPT only offers a very generic questions for evaluating the fairness of the machine learning algorithm. And there's a group of people who are actually customizing the ChatGPT to solve this problem of fair machine learning by doing the adaptation to the ChatGPT current language models, so that every data scientist can easily evaluate the fairness of the machine learning algorithm easily by going through this ChatGPT.
You mean like measuring biases or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, because we don't. It's really like an opaque process. We don't really know, so it's kind of we're guessing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's a big problem, and especially in the healthcare industry, where the decisions have a huge impact in terms of the population. So when you're developing the model, you're not aware about some of the biasness because of the ethnicity, race, religion, different groups. So
they're
really,
yeah. It's a big problem, I think. And like it's also like a dangerous problem too, because you can imagine there's like misdiagnoses and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I have a funny story about that. I won't say which startup it was, but I was helping one startup build, and in order for them to get data, they just needed more brown people because they didn't really have a lot of brown people. So I just helped them get more data because they just at one point that's what they needed. So that was funny. And anyways, I think okay. So what I wanted to spend the last part of the call is sharing some of these discoveries that I've had. I'm spending most of my time really on the framework to enable the model, to enable users to discover these things, because I think that's our fastest path forward. Is if users discover these things in parallel, we'll be able to grow much faster than a system that requires only Python developers to code plugins, for example. And so I'm adding the capabilities, things like sending emails, sending Twilio, getting access to your calendar, parsing you can already parse all your emails. And so we just haven't published how to generate these phrases and do them. And so these calls, part of these calls will be publishing these phrases so users can publish the videos and things like that and help us grow the cheat codes community. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give these away. These phrases actually work. You can try them yourself. They haven't been published to the cheat codes community page yet. So if you record a video, we're just going to try this as a promotion to see how it works. Please record a video of any one of these working and submit it. Click submit cheat code. So when you run these things, there's a button that says submit cheat code. And if you click submit cheat code and you have a Loom link, you can just submit that to us, and then we'll publish it, and that'll help us grow this community page. And it's really hard to grow a community. It's like a chicken and egg problem. You have to solve like the content and the users and stuff. So this is our solution to solve that chicken and egg problem, basically, to incentivize users to publish things first and grow it that way. So where did I? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so let's try this one. So you can build things like sentiment analysis. One of the exciting things is you can build things like sentiment analysis using just simple language. Whereas a few months ago, you had to be a coder to build like a sentiment analysis machine learning model. But now, since it's like one of the emergent qualities of the language models, you can do this in language. So one of the things you could say is, if the text on this page is positive or negative or contains a word, send an email to whoever, or send an email to myself. And you can put your own email. Don't put my email, so you guys don't send me emails. Put your own email, but you can go try this on any tweet, or try it yourself, and it'll build this automation for you. And in this promotion, we're going to allow anyone who records a video and submit this, even if you're not the first or whatever, access to all the rewards for submitting it and things like that. So you get 1,000 cheat codes for life every month, access to the private Discord, and possibly earning money every time someone else runs it. So that's kind of exciting too. Maybe we'll share it across all the users. Okay, so what it just did, it sent me an email. I don't know if you saw that it had the word positive in the email in the text. So you can try that. There's other cool things you can do. Let's go down the list. Scrape the sentiment of this tweet and send it to Google Sheets. Okay, yeah, let's try that somewhere. Maybe let's pick a random tweet or do it somewhere. Yeah, okay. Let's do this one. Okay. So it's like you can build sentiment analysis, machine learning tools, custom machine learning tools, transforms of the data. So you can say, if this is this, make it look this. Classification of the data. So if this is talking about investments, send me an email. Or if this is a startup, send me an email, right? Or if this is a customer who's looking for this solution, send them an email, right, and stuff like that. And I think, what was this supposed to do? Scrape this sentiment or something. 1, 2. Maybe it didn't have a sentiment. Let me try it again. Scrape the sentiment. Oh yeah, it did it. Okay, I see what it did. Okay, let me just try it over here. Oh yeah, cool. And then it's positive. Great. Okay. So you get the edit. You can build custom machine learning tools, classifications, transforms of the data, things like that. Basically anything using simple language. So Project Atlas can bring in any CDN, any library, JavaScript library from a CDN, like 3.js to build 3D scenes or something like that, or voice transcription services. There's a lot of wild JavaScript libraries out there. So just Google JavaScript GitHub problem and you'll find a library for it usually. So that's kind of one trick. It can pull in any random API, like the Salesforce API, because it knows the history of all these APIs and stuff like that. So it can send data to all those APIs. So I'm basically explaining, like, you can build all these things in simple language, and we expect our users to very quickly now discover these things much faster than us building them ourselves. Okay, so let's go down the list and let's try a few more. Oh, this one was fun. Okay, so we had a user who was whose son was studying for a graduate school exam in India, the KCET exam. And so it's like a math, physics, and chemistry exam. And he wanted help generating like a way to build a quiz to help his son do well. And I said, okay, we can generate this quiz. And so he generated the quiz, and then he asked me for help to how to improve it and things like that, right? And so it first generated this quiz for him that actually, when his son got the question wrong, it would give him the correct reasoning and stuff like. And so it was really cool. It did math, physics, and chemistry. It was not that good at math. We had to tell it to get the right things right and stuff like that, but it got it right. And just like how I iterated the website before, you could add features to these tools that you're building. So he wanted the ability to add a timer, right? And this guy's completely non-technical. I mean, he's smart. He's just non-technical. And so he's not going to code this himself. And I just said, okay, just tell it to add a timer. And he did it, and it worked. And it added a timer, and it actually does work, and it generates like an exam and stuff like that. I don't think this is finished. Hold on, something happened. Sometimes the OpenAI API has been dropping out because any status. Yeah. Okay, maybe. Oh no, it's okay. If something goes wrong, just like check this page. Sometimes it's just completely down, and then just try it again, and it usually works. Sometimes the OpenAI API just like breaks or something like that. But he added a timer basically, and it added a 20-minute timer and stuff like that using completely natural language. And these guys are like a simple. It's like a simple phrase to generate it. And so I thought that was kind of cool and clever. Okay, so you can try this. I'm going to paste all these in the Discord as well. So let's. So you can all have access to this. You can try it. Let me try this one as well. Generate a reply to the tweet on this page. Okay, let's try this. So when you say things like this page or do something on this page, it actually gives it the context of where you are to solve the problem. So rather than having it generate code to figure out what the tweet is, like a personal software assistant, you kind of give it the context. And so if you look closely at the code, you can see it actually supplied the tweet, and it's generating the tweet. So it didn't have to take that extra step to figure out what the tweet was. It knew what the tweet was, supplied the tweet to a GPT-3 API to generate a completely new tweet, novel content, and then it actually replied. I'm not going to reply to this, but you get the idea. So, and once you build this thing, you can click Save Code. It's now completely yours to keep. It'll now work on any other tweet. Save Twitter thing. And once it's in your library, any one of these tools, you can click White Label, and it'll generate a standalone Chrome extension that's yours. It's your own branded product or internal tool that you can distribute to your company. It maintains all your own security compliances. Everything is run on premise and things like that. But also, if it's valuable automation to you, it's potentially valuable automation for a lot of other people. So this is a very quick way to build products, GPT-powered products, and sell them as Chrome extensions. We also have tutorials on how to set up your own Stripe backend to accept subscriptions. So ask the live chat support about that. And the last one I'll do here is you can make a shooter game, a space shooter game. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Did this exam. Okay. Okay. 1 out of 3. Explanation. Interesting. Okay, so let me do this. Oh, I downloaded my Chrome extension. Okay, and this will probably be the last one we'll be able to get to, but you can build games, and the exciting, fun thing about when you build tools and website in this way, it's visual. So you see it happening. So the difference between automations where it's kind of nebulous, you don't know what to say if it doesn't work. If it's like an impossible thing you have to research, then what do you say, right? But with these visual things that are websites and games, if you want a feature, you want it to look slightly different, like when I added the pricing section, users are much more successful with these, building products and tools and things like that, because you can just see what it needs and tell it what it needs. And just like if you were hiring a personal software engineer, it builds it for you. So we're very excited, and it's going to be, even if we don't release this personal software engineer solution, it's going to be an exciting future in the next 6 months to a year, because everyone's going to have this in their pocket. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be larger context windows. There's just some of the simple dimensions that are going to enable a completely new category of solutions. And like I said in the beginning of the call, I feel like it's going to completely change how software is bought and sold as well. Because why would you pay someone else to build features slower for you if you can pay yourself cheaper? I mean, if you can pay less to get this better features and things like that, personalized for yourself and stuff. So that's very interesting. All right, guys. That's all we have for today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop these prompts in the Discord. So if you go to the Discord, all users have access to a few public channels now. You can actually chat in these channels. We had to shut down the channels for a little bit because we had some trolls. Like I mentioned, we got DDoS attacked, and we just got attacked a few days ago and stuff like that. So we had a few trolls. We just need a break from the trolls, but everything's back. We have now a moderator. We're hiring moderators and things to handle all that, and lean into building a community. And so I'm going to drop this into the. Oh, maybe it's not. That's why, because it's not spelled right. Drop these prompts into the Product Lab weekly meetups channel, and you can get access to it, and you can also chat in that channel as well now. So prompts from the meetup. All right, guys. Great meetup. See you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.